Amanda, and welcome to my channel. I am an artist, I am a furniture flipper, I love anything to do with DIY, and I'm so excited to be sharing all of my projects with you on this channel. So when the pandemic hit, I lost my job and transitioned into doing my art almost full time. I love doing my art, but I am what I consider a multi-dimensional creative. I always have to have my hands in a million different pots. And so I wanted to start flipping furniture to earn extra income. And it's just something that I've always loved doing regardless. So I might as well be selling it on the side with my art. My intention with this channel is to just share all of my projects that I do when I can, and to show you how I do things, and hopefully to inspire you in some way to believe that you can do these things too. I am also a renter, and although I have dreams of one day owning a home, and I love doing projects around my place, I have a small budget, so one of the things I want to do is share my projects and show you that just because you have a small budget or you live in kind of a funkier, older place doesn't mean that you can't still have a really nice and beautiful home. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, just remember to subscribe if a video comes out and hit the bell for notifications. So without further ado, here is my first flip.
I got this Land of Nod dresser off of Facebook Marketplace for free and knew right away what I wanted to do with it. I was so excited because I could tell that it had really good and solid bones, and with a little love, I could turn it into something really beautiful. So I first examined the condition of the dresser, and it had a lot of wear and tear, like big giant scratches all over and tape, and there was just a lot of grime and dirt everywhere. So I got to work. The drawers were secured in place by these long nylon ties, and I think that was because technically it's a kid's dresser, and so it was to prevent the kids from pulling open drawers and pulling them out all the way and falling on them. So I began by cutting the cords out, and honestly kind of had to because I couldn't get the drawers all the way out otherwise. I then needed to remove the ties completely by unscrewing them from the back of each dresser drawer and inside the dresser. After that, I got to work removing all of the wood poles. I actually liked these and thought they were kind of cute, and thought that I could possibly repurpose them for something else, so I held on to a few. So something that I learned is that you always want to wash down your pieces really well, especially if you're going to paint them, because otherwise you're essentially just painting over dirt and grime, and nobody wants that. So the next thing I did was use a little bit of dish soap, and everybody says to use Dawn, but I don't have Dawn, so I used first generation, and I washed the piece down. I then used Crud Cutter by spraying it all over the areas that had tape and just gunk, and then I used a putty knife to scrape it off, which ended up working really well. And just so you know, I will link all of these items below so you can see what I'm talking about. And so now the real work begins, and it's time to start filling all of these scratches. And there were a ton of scratches everywhere. I filled in the holes on the front of the drawers as well. However, I'm covering them with burlap, so it's not totally necessary, but I knew that it would bug me, and so I just wanted to go the extra step and do it anyway. I got to sanding, which I already knew this step was going to need to be done multiple times because some of the scratches were pretty deep. I don't have an orbital sander, which I plan on getting, but I do have a palm sander, which has a triangular point. This is really good for my art because it gets in all the tight corners. But for furniture, an orbital sander is the way to go. Or if you can, have both, because I'm sure you can use them both at some point. After I got most of the bigger area with my electric sander, I used my sanding block to get more of the smaller areas and corners. A little tip, keep your sanding blocks and you can just wrap sandpaper around them and continue using the block. So I used a 120 and a 220 grit sandpaper here. Then it was time to wipe down everything and prime the dresser. When I was finished priming, I worked on some of my art pieces while the dresser dried. If you are interested in learning more about my art, you can head to Instagram or my website. Both are linked below. But here is just a little preview.
I just got the first coat of primer on, and a trick that I learned from all my research in flipping furniture was mixing the polyurethane top coat with a little bit of the paint that you used, and I think that it did a really good job at just evening it out a bit throughout the whole piece. There are definitely still some spots that I'm a little like about, but overall I think it's looking really good, and I'm super excited to move on to the dresser drawers.
Cane is a bit pricey, so I decided to use burlap instead, which was just a more cost-effective way to go while still giving it the texture look I'm going for. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous for this part because I knew once I adhered the burlap to the front of the drawers, there was no going back.
I'm using Mod Podge on the drawer fronts to adhere the burlap to the wood. I saw another furniture flipper do this, so I'm going to try it on a tester piece of wood first to make sure that I like the way that it looks.
So once I cut out each piece to fit the 6 drawers, I decided to test the technique I was going to use on a scrap piece of wood and a scrap piece of burlap. Once I knew that the Mod Podge was going to work with the burlap, I moved on to adding trim to each drawer front. I really wanted to add a higher end feel to this piece, and I think something as simple as this step really makes this piece feel that way. Because I work with wood making my art, I am already really comfortable working with saws, and I just want to make this really clear. Don't do what I did here. Make sure you always wear protective eyewear. Once I got all the pieces cut to the length I wanted them, I marked each corner where I was going to cut it at 45-degree angle and started cutting them to fit. Then it was back to a lot of sanding and priming each piece. And voila! I'm pretty excited about how this is going to look. Once I painted all the trim, I began adhering the burlap to each of the drawer fronts. When that was dry, I began adding the trim with a mix of wood glue and finishing each side off with a couple of brad nails. And then it was time to fill in the holes from where the brad nails were and add 2 more layers of paint. When I got the drawers all back in the dresser and saw it coming to life, I was so excited. One thing I realized, however, was that some of the Mod Podge had seeped through and created dark patches. So I decided to go back over each drawer with another really thick layer of Mod Podge. This also created a protective barrier anyway, so I'll just be doing this moving forward with anything that I use burlap on. I decided to go with smaller brass knobs, and I love the way they look when they were all attached. I think it just really added a classy and high-end look to the dresser. The last thing I wanted to do was add contact paper to each drawer. I think these little touches really set pieces apart and add such a nice finishing touch. And here's the final piece. I really love the way this dresser turned out. I ended up sharing it on my Instagram and it sold right away for $500. So I got this dresser for free off Facebook Marketplace, put about $80 into it, and so that is a profit of $420. What do you think of the way the dresser turned out? I would love to hear from you, so share comments in the comment section below.